Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I'm making this to follow up from last week. I talked a lot about living an extraordinary life, an amazing life, and being someone who is seeing beyond the veil, being someone who is an alternative minded person who doesn't trust, let's say, official narratives so easily. And I wanted to give you a little context and get a little personal because I don't do that too often. I like to keep things lighthearted and funny and humorous, and I like to relieve people of their suffering more than anything. And I just wanted to give you a little background on how I arrived at this place because it hasn't always been sunshine and roses for me. And I think that I can relate to a lot of what people are going through, what they've been through, and I want to just share a little bit about my experience. So I woke up, okay? It's a term I don't even really like, to be honest, but that happened to me in 2004 when I was 21 years old, or even just 20 years old. Anyway, I made a commitment to myself to know the truth. That was my objective. And it was a really difficult assignment to accept, as I'm sure a lot of you can relate. Wanting to know the truth sent me down a very dark path. Not necessarily as far as my life goes, but a dark path, like the rabbit hole path was pretty dark. And it isolated me from friends, from family. I had no idea how to process what I was uncovering, and the realization that I might have been lied to about pretty much everything I'd come to know about life up to that point was very difficult to accept, and I was spiraling. And I was angry, and I wanted to tell everybody about it, and I was mad when people wouldn't listen to me. And I started judging them because of their unwillingness to hear me, and I would get into drag out knockdown fights with family members, with my girlfriend at the time, with my classmates, with my professors. It was a really tough moment. And I knew that I was onto something in spite of their resistance. I just couldn't take any responsibility for my behavior. And I was blaming them for being unwilling to hear, for their unwillingness to hear me. And a few things happened. I mentioned before an argument I had with my dad about, I don't even know what it was, something, but probably about 9/11 or something. And we got into such an argument, and I was yelling at him to the point where I slammed the door in his face and drove home or drove away. And as I was driving away, I thought, man, this sucks. My dad's my best friend. And we just got into a screaming fight with each other over 9/11 and the Iraq War. And I thought, man, this sucks, first of all, because I love him. And I probably just made it way worse. I probably just made it, my approach made it harder for him to hear not only the perspective coming from me, but that perspective in general. So I have to reevaluate what I'm doing. And I had a girlfriend at the time who got to see me go through this process and saw my erratic behavior and my wild emotions and had to put up with me during that. And one time we were apart for the summer. She was at a theater thing, and anyway, uh, we got into an argument on the phone, and I was probably lecturing her about something, and she was lecturing me right back. And she said something that was so cold and mean. She said, "No one cares about what you think. No one cares about if you think whatever 9/11 was an inside job. No one cares about that. Not only that, she said, you live on a cloud of elitism with your thoughts and opinions." Because I was very judging of people because they weren't willing to look into or acknowledge the things that I was interested in. And it really made me mad. And ultimately, we ended up breaking up. But that has stuck with me ever since. And for years, I thought she was wrong, but I think she was right. I was on a cloud of elitism with my point of view. I thought it made me somehow better than other people to know that there was shadiness in the world, that there was darkness, that things weren't what they seemed. And that gave me some sort of like special vantage point from which to judge others. And so I decided throughout this time that I needed to become better. I needed to become a better communicator. I needed to not be the conspiracy guy, which a lot of you know me as from my character from Joy Camp. And it was not an easy chapter of my life. It was actually really difficult. Going through that waking up process really sucked, but I was diligent and I followed through and I didn't give up, and it ended up leading to all kinds of opportunities, but only because of persistence. So after graduating from college and being in Los Angeles for a couple of years, I knew that I wanted to contribute. One of the main things that the people that I admired were saying over and over, people like David Icke and Max Egan, they were saying, you can't just sit on the sidelines. You have to participate. And I was like, yes, I want to participate, but how can I? What can I do? What should I do? I don't know what I bring to the table. So I joined along with Kevin, who was also from Joy Camp. We started going to We Are Change LA meetups, and we would go do protests, and we'd stand on the side of like near the 101 freeway entrance and on Hollywood Boulevard and hold up picket signs and hand out DVDs about 9/11 and yell at people driving by. And I thought, this is not me. There's a place for this perhaps, but it's not my place. This doesn't feel right. So now I'm contributing, but it's not authentic. It's not me. It actually feels really uncomfortable to do this. So I went back to the drawing board, and eventually Kevin and I stumbled into creating Joy Camp. We made a funny video that was supposed to be a one-off, that wasn't even supposed to be for an audience. A friend of ours made a video called Conspiracy Cologne. It was modeled after a Calvin Klein ad, and sent it to us. And Kevin and I were like, oh, let's make our version and send it back. And we ended up making this video called Conspiracy Theorist PSA that turned out so well that once it was completed, we thought, whoa, could this be our contribution? It was such a coalescence of our talents. Kevin being an editor and a cinematographer and a writer, and me being a writer and an actor and a performer. And it was such a great synthesis of our talents. We thought, man, maybe this could be it. Maybe if we leaned into this, we could be the guys who bring much needed humor and lightheartedness and humor to the truth scene. In addition, we really wanted to get on the radar of the people that we really respected. So we had goals of not only reaching people with the videos so that they could also have, a humorous take on conspiracy type stuff, but we could present it to someone like David Icke and Max Egan and be like, look, we're in this too, and we're contributing. We wanted to have that sort of acknowledgement. And also at that time, it was Red Ice Radio was the big one for us. We really wanted to become guests on Red Ice Radio. So these were like driving forces for us. And it all worked. But that was because we made the decision to figure out the best way to represent ourselves and communicate in the most effective way possible. Use our talents, our pre-existing skill sets, pre-existing uniqueness to lean on to create the thing that could help people. And also that goal of like, I want to be thanked or acknowledged, or I want to impress David Icke. Those were our motivations. And it worked because we were good at what we did, and we just kept going. We kept going, we kept doing, we kept going and doing, persisting. And David Icke is now a trusted ally of mine. He posted all the Joy Camp videos, I think, on his website, as well as all my poetry. Max Egan became such a good friend that he played guitar at my wedding while my wife walked down the aisle. And Lana and Henrik from Red Ice Radio are like really close personal friends of mine. So it's amazing how this worked. Now, moving on a bit, finding the opportunities in the challenge, because again, this is not an easy path to be on. But is there an easy path in life? I don't think so. In 2015, Joy Camp had sort of reached its peak and was on the decline, as it were, because it's hard to get a lot of people all on the same page all the time, especially when we weren't making any money from it, so we're trying to like do all kinds of things to ensure that our own personal lives were taken care of. And I met a girl. I'd had a horrible time dating in Los Angeles. Okay, I'd been there from 2009, 2015, no girlfriend. Experiences, dating, all that, but no girlfriend. And I met a girl. I thought she was going to be the one. I thought it was going really well. And she not only broke up with me, but she ghosted me. So the most painful way to break up with someone, she didn't just like rip the Band-Aid off and tell me to F off. She just stopped responding to my texts and to my calls. It was brutal, absolutely brutal. So that coupled with Joy Camp not really producing much content, and I was miserable. I mean, I was at a real rut in my life, and I was so tortured by this ghosting by this girl that I couldn't get anything else done. I mean, I was obsessed. I was like, what happened? Why did she do this to me? Why, what could I have said differently? And I was replaying every single moment in my head to the point of absurdity, to the point where I could actually recognize how ridiculous it was, how comical it was, how obsessed I was with trying to figure it out. To the point where I finally said, it was like that survival instinct that kicked in and was like, you've got to stop. Enough already. Enough. Enough. You are better than this. That little bit of dignity, that little bit of self-respect, self-confidence kicked back in and was like, got to change, buddy. So I was like, all right, I need to reapply my energy elsewhere. What can I do? How can I get my mind off of this? I need to do something else. So I was like, well, okay, I have always enjoyed writing poetry at various points in my life as a way of just like expressing creatively and for fun. I was like, okay, I'll write a poem. So I went and got an Edgar Allan Poe book and a Shel Silverstein book from the library, brought them home and started reading both of them, and then started writing the poem. And again, this was just to redirect the energy, to stir up the energy, I guess. And I ended up writing a poem called Bill Lost His Memory, and it did exactly what it needed to do. It healed me. It gave me something to focus my energy on, and I produced something really excellent. And I was like, wow, not only was that fun, but this is really good. And I started sharing it with people, and everybody I shared it with really enjoyed it as well. And I thought, okay, maybe I can lean into this. Maybe this is something that I can do. Because again, this is like using a previous skill set. Because not only am I a good writer, but I'm a good performer as well. I can find opportunities to perform this poem and reach people that way, similar to the way I reach people with Joy Camp through comedy. I could do it. I could do a truth poetry, essentially. So I was invited to speak at the Anarchapulco conference in 2017. And I decided to use my 40-minute speaking slot to perform the 4 or 5 poems that I'd written at that point, which is all I had. And nobody knew that I was going to do this. I was going to speak. And I called the video, or the set, Rabbit Hole, fitting. And when I got on there, I thought, you know what, I could bomb. I'm doing a 40-minute poetry set to an anarchist audience who has no idea that I'm going to do this. And I've never performed these poems anywhere. But I was like, you know what, screw it. YOLO, you only live once. So I went ahead and did it, and trusted that they would like it because the content was good, and knowing that I was a good performer because I put in so much time learning how to be a good stage actor. I used my stage presence, my stage talent, and I knocked it out of the park. I got 3 standing ovations in 40 minutes. And to say that was validating would be an understatement. So then I leaned even further into that and started getting opportunities, started getting invited to perform poetry at conferences all over the world. And because I was such a dynamic stage presence, I started getting offers to MC events like Anarchapulco and like the Red Pill Expo and various others. And it was really about finding those opportunities when I needed them and utilizing, leaning on what I was already good at, which is what I help people do with the Parrhesia course. So that's like where I'm at now. And in 2020, of course, the conference scene slowed down. I got married. I had my first kid. And of course, the whole world came to a stop. And I knew just from being on this journey for so long that the bigger the event, the bigger ripple effect there is. So more people snap out of their trances, the bigger the thing is. So I knew that COVID lockdowns were going to stir a lot of people up and get a lot of people thinking for the very first time about this reality and questioning things. So I wanted to be there to catch those people because I know what it's like to go through that experience of what it's like to wake up and have no one there to hear you. And when you push too much, people push back or they pull away completely. And in the last few years, there have been so many landmines set in front of the people who are alternative minded, who are truth seeking and conspiracy leaning, whatever. We've been so demonized. So those people who are just now starting to question things as a result of what was happening in 2020 were now going to be not only met with resistance, but met with outright anger and hatred. So I wanted to catch those people. In addition, I knew that it was going to sever the ties between, like, for those who were already thinking about things, it was going to make it more difficult. It was like if you were barely, like, if our relationships were hanging on by a thread before, like we were able to have small talk, I guess, in spite of wildly differing opinions, the whole mask stuff and the jab stuff was going to absolutely draw the line in the sand and separate people to the point where perhaps it would be irreversible. And I wanted to step in and help that because division is one of the goals. So I really spent the whole 2020 as we were pregnant. And so as the baby was developing, Sonia and I set out to create this course to help people with exactly that. I was like, okay, how can I synthesize my talents once again? What can I draw from? What do I know that I can help people with? And as we put our minds together, it was communication. Because it was realizing that everything I had done up to that point was about refining my ability to communicate, because in the beginning I was so bad at it. I was that guy. I was the conspiracy guy, fire hosing information and not caring about how I sounded or how it was landing on others. And I had to, I started with that relationship with my dad and my family and just really focusing my energy into Joy Camp and then into poetry. And then, of course, now into the Parrhesia course to help people not lose their relationships, to not lose touch with their children or their parents, or lose their jobs. I mean, this is why I'm so adamant about what I do and the approach that I take. But I can help people basically save time, spare you that the years that I went through of not knowing what to do and not knowing who to talk to or how to talk to people or how to express myself or how to use what I was already good at and use that as a superpower to help people. And that not to say like, well, you can be hearing me and think, well, I've never written poetry before. Or I don't know how to act, or I don't know how to present on stage. That's fine. That's my stuff. But you can be really good at gardening or building or know about health and fitness. Whatever your thing is can be utilized as a strength to uplift you and others. And I guess that's all I'm getting at. How to find the opportunities in the challenge. Because I work with a lot of people who are so disenfranchised and so lost and unhappy and isolated and alone and paralyzed by what they're learning and what they're seeing, that they can't really move in any direction. They don't have any friends. They don't have family that talks to them. They don't have good jobs. They're not doing well financially, and they don't know how to maneuver because they're so overwhelmed by what they've been learning and what they've been seeing, and they don't even know where to take the next step. I work with a lot of people like that, and I see this time and time again. So, if that's you, or if that's not you, if you're just someone who really wants to take what you have, whatever it is that's specific to you, and figure out how to harness it and utilize it to help others and uplift yourself, then let's do it. Let's shortcut the rabbit hole together and consider signing up for Parrhesia Season 6. This is the last season I'm doing it. I want to go out with a bang, and I want you involved. And it's so much more than communication. Communication is the lens that I utilize to get you to remember how awesome you are and how awesome you can be and how much you have to contribute and how much service you can provide to help others, so we can actually navigate this weird world together. How to find opportunity in every challenge, how to find the silver lining, how to draw upon your talents and skills to get out of whatever rut you're in and to heal whatever relationship that is suffering in your life. I think that touches on everything. But just know that I know what it's like. I'm not just some guy who's always upbeat and happy and has had no issues, and that waking up was just like such a beautiful experience. No, it sucked. It really sucked. It was dark. To live a life of truth, to like follow truth, you have to accept the darkness. And being willing to see that is what separates us from the masses. We are willing to accept how bad things can be. But once you move through that is when you're free and you're liberated, when you're on the other side. It's a beautiful world. I mean, it's the best thing that could have possibly happened to me. And I'm so grateful that I have this vantage point, as lonely as it can be still sometimes. I'm so grateful I have this vantage point, because ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is hell. Think about it. Those people in your lives who are drinking the Kool-Aid, they are operating from a place of fear, and could you imagine believing every single thing the news says? What a horrifying existence. That is not bliss. That is hell. Being willing to see how things really are is bliss, is freedom. Furthermore, final thing I'll say is true freedom, in my opinion, can only be achieved through growth. The moment you stop growing is the moment you stop pursuing freedom. So if you really are not honest about pursuing freedom and want freedom, you have to choose to keep growing. If you want help growing, let me know. We can do this. All right, that's it. I'm gonna take off. I gotta pick up my son. But hopefully this was of some value to you, and you liked it. I'm gonna head out. Much love. Get on the wait list for Parrhesia Season 6. Link in the description and in the comments. And I will talk to you soon. All right. Bye.